Alright guys, so welcome to the first lesson 1 of this web design training course. It's titled Introduction to Website Design and Development by Bolaji James Afolabi. So let's move on. The first thing we need to ask ourselves here is what is web design? What do we mean by web design? To define website design, we need to first understand what a website is. From the topic web design. So we need to first define that word website. What is it? What is it all about? So what then is a website? A website refers to series of interconnected and interrelated web pages that is owned and managed by a person or an organization. Series of interconnected and interrelated. When we say something is interconnected, you can jump from one place to the other, and they are all related. They are talking about the same, maybe the same person, the same organization, the same brand, or something like that. So, but there's a question that pops out from here. What is a web page? What is a web page? That is another question we should ask ourselves. Now, a web page is any page of documents that is accessible on the internet through an address. That is, any document, we know what a document is, a page of write-up or image, drawing or whatever. But this time around, it's not just in our hand, but it is available. It's accessible on the internet using a particular address. We'll talk about address as we go on. A web page will contain any computer data such as text, images, sound, video, etc. So when you put together all of these things and it forms one page and it's available on the internet, people can access it using the internet, then it is a web page. So now a website, we said, is series of these web pages that are interconnected and interrelated, that is available, that is owned and managed by maybe a person, like you can own a website, or maybe an organization. So that's what we mean by a web page. So I think now we understand what web page is, what website is, and then we can now define that topic, web design. So let's go back to it. What is web design? Web design refers to the creative process. Take note of that. Creative process. That is, it's talking from the word design. Design has to do with creativity, putting together things so that it will look beautiful and attractive. So the creative process of putting together content that are displayed on the internet. Content that are displayed on the internet. When you are putting together this kind of things, the process, the procedure of putting together, that process of creativity of putting together these things is usually referred to as a web design. It says, let's continue. It usually refers to the user experience aspect of website development rather than software development. That means it's a part of web development. The development is actually the building. Design is like envisaging, that's dreaming, envisioning. You are envisioning, if I put this thing and this thing together, how it will look good. It will feel good. So you see, it talks about user experience. You are thinking about what the user feels, how the user feels about what you are doing. You understand? So, but the development is the building itself. But since most people now in this age do the two, you design and you develop, and that is why we say introduction to website design and development. Let's move on. What does a web designer do? You want to be a web designer. So what does a web designer do? A web designer works on the appearance, layout, and in some cases content of a website. The appearance, for instance, relates to the color, the font, and images used. Layout refers to how information is structured and categorized. So these are the things that a web designer does. These are the things you do as a web designer. You work on the appearance, the font, the color, and what you put together that will become appealing to the general public, those that will be viewing the website. Okay? Qualities of a good web design or a good website. What are the qualities? A good web design is easy to use, aesthetically pleasing, it's inviting. That is what we mean. People see it, they want to stay on it, they want to look onto it, they feel very good about it. So, and suit the user group, those that will be using it. Take for instance, you are building a website for school, for not maybe primary and secondary school, things that will please them. It must suit that group of people that is meant for. Then the brand of the website, maybe let's still use the school. The brand also, their colors, the colors of the school, maybe their flag, their primary colors, and all of that must be used to build the website. That's what we're talking about. Web design used to be focused on designing websites for desktop browsers. However, since the mid-2010s, designing websites for mobile devices has become a very important point of concern. That means earlier, before now, people just build websites for computers, but for some times now, we have now realized that mobile users are now increasing every day. In fact, we have now discovered that most of the visits that people get on their website daily is from mobile devices. You get like 70-80% of your user from mobile devices. So there's need to put them into consideration, and that is why there's now the concern. For instance, when you are using your page builder, there are page builders like Elementor, whereby you need, as you are building, you check the visibility both on desktop, you see how it will look like on mobile devices, so that you make sure that it fits their need. So that is what we are talking about here. So those are qualities of good web design that you must put in place. How do you develop a website? Websites are generally written in programming languages such as HTML, as hypertext markup language, Java, Python, PHP, etc. I know you've not heard most of these names before, but if you have heard about them, then good. Now, in time past, one would need a good knowledge of any one or two of these languages to develop a website. There's no two way about it. You must be able to code in time past. But with the advent of content management software, CMS, individuals with little or no knowledge of these languages can now develop their own website, and that is the reason why you are here. Because you are not going to learn coding. If it were to be something that you are going to learn coding, it scares many people away, even from this skill at that time. But because of the advent of this software, people can now develop websites without having much knowledge of these languages, because they are coding languages. It's just like you are learning a new language, and you need to dedicate some time to learn and memorize all the way that language is written and spoken. So let's move on. Let's now look at what is a CMS. What is a CMS? We just mentioned something. CMS. A content management software is an application that enables users to easily create, publish, and edit digital content. You understand? This software takes away the burden of coding, thereby allowing users to focus on the visual aspect of their content. You understand? What this kind of software do is they whatever you do, they now convert it to codes for you. So you just look like a normal graphic designer. You design, you put things together, and then the software converts it to code in the back end for you. So you don't bother about coding, but you just look at how will this thing look beautiful. That is what concerns you. You understand now? Okay, so examples include WordPress, Drupal, Joomla, Magento, etc. So there are so many of them like that does this function. Even in game making, there are content management system for game whereby you don't have to code the game. You just pick the tools that you want, and then the game is fun. The coding is done in the background by this software. Okay, now let's look at WordPress. What is WordPress? Because WordPress is the particular content management system that we're going to be using. So let's pick that one out of all those examples and talk about it. And what you can see here is the logo of WordPress. Okay, WordPress, also known as WP, is a free and open source CMS written in PHP. You can see now it's written in PHP, in a programming language, just that you only see the visual aspect, but it is made with code and paired with a MySQL database. So that is the kind of database it uses to build databases, which allow users to create beautiful and responsive websites using drag and drop tools. Take note of that. You can see it's quoted. Drag and drop tools. At least you just drag. I want this thing to be here. I want this one to stand here. I want this one to be here. I want this one to be like this. And then all the coding is done underneath for you. Now, some of the things you always hear about when you are talking about WordPress, common features of WordPress include templates, which we always call themes, and then plugins. So this theme and plugin, they are the one that extend the possibilities of WordPress websites. Let me quickly say something about that. The theme is like the architecture that will determine whether the house will have sitting room, the house will have bedroom, and all of that. While the plugins are the things that will now make sure, okay, we have sitting room. What kind of sitting room? What and what should be in the are we going to be able to put in that sitting room? So they extend the possibilities of what you can do with a WordPress website. We are going to talk more about that when we get as we go on. So let's move on. I wrote something here. WordPress does the coding job for you while you focus on the visual beauty of your content, thereby making it easy for almost anyone to create a website. Isn't that exciting? So it's very exciting. It takes away a lot of the burden. Okay, now take note here. WordPress powers over 40% of all websites on the internet today. Of all the websites around on the internet all over the world, WordPress alone powers 40% of all websites. So I think this is amazing. It's amazing. Okay. So let's move on. Tools needed to put a website online. So, I told us before the training that we need some tools. Now, what are the tools needed to put a website online? Given the fact that the coding aspect has been taken away, what are those other tools we need? What makes a web page different from a normal page or document on our personal computer is the fact that a web page is accessible on the internet, while the other one is only stored on your PC. It's only on your PC when there is power outage and you need to show it to somebody. Even though the person's own system is charged, your own system is down, you cannot show it to somebody. But when it's a web page, it's available on the internet. Once the person have access to internet, they can go there and view it, even though the system of your own personal computer that you use to make this thing in the initial stage is down. but because these things are online, they are accessible, so people can always go there. Now, to make your pages accessible on the internet, you need a domain and hosting service. So those are two other names that we need to talk about: domain and hosting service. What are they? Let's look at them. Domain name. A domain is nothing more than the address of a digital content on the internet. The address of a digital content that is on the internet. Let's look at this. There are over 7 billion people on earth, but everyone is addressed uniquely, and we all have a unique address. Therefore, we are usually called by our names and attached with our addresses. Let's say in some court cases, when you go to court, they say that you, Mr. So-so of so address. You can see, so to specify whom you are. So the same way, every content on the internet has a unique address by which it is called. That's what we call domain name. So we can also call this the URL. The URL. Now the domain is a little bit different. The domain name, for instance, now is the name that we can use to get all your details on your website. Now the URL will now can narrow down to the name, the address of each and every file. Each and every file that you put even inside that your domain, all of them will now have specific URL that you can use to point to each and every one of them. You understand that? So the domain name could be yourname.com or yourname.com.ng, facebook.com, google.com, jam.org.ng, and all of that. All these are what we call domain name. Okay, let's move on. The next one, hosting service or server. Now, because it is difficult for all individuals to keep their computers connected to the internet for 24 hours every day, you type something, you make your things and put it on your website and make sure it's connected to the internet so that anybody that wants to see it will always connect. It's difficult. Most people don't have that power. So because of this, some people operate this as a business, ensuring that their computers are kept online always. Now these computers are what we call servers, and portions of these servers are rented out to individuals to keep their files so as to make them always accessible on the internet. So it's like you are renting a space when we are talking of hosting. The hosting is talking like renting a place. If you look at this picture here, you see things like drawer, like the shelf that you have in your houses. You can see different people going there, putting their own files in different areas. That space that has been rented out to them, that is where you go. You put your own file in that place, and some people manage it. You pay them to ensure that these things don't go down. You understand now? So that the servers are always online, so that your documents. So each time someone asks or search for your document, your file, the internet protocol will go into this server and bring out your file and display to anybody. So this is a picture of a server room or data center. So let's move on. That's what we mean by hosting and server. Now, things to consider when choosing hosting service. Okay, we have said that there are companies that run all the time. Now, there are thousands of hosting companies around the world, but as a web designer, you need to define your need. You need to know, what do I want, and then find out if a hosting company can meet such need before you choose to host your website with them. Here are 3 major factors to consider. There are so many things you need to consider, but the key factors, there are 3 that you need to consider before choosing a hosting service. Let's look at them. The number 1 is uptime. Uptime. If it is called a website, that is a quote I put there. If it is called a website, then it should be accessible on the internet always. You can't say this is a website and people are always going there. It's not always online, as we experience with some websites in Nigeria. Okay, so uptime refers to the amount of time a website is online over a period of time. So you need to consider uptime. Is this website, this hosting company, will they be able to put my website online all the time that I want it to be there, or will their server always be down and people will be disappointed? You need to consider that. Another thing we need to consider is the speed or load time. The speed. The second major factor to consider is the time it takes for a web page to load. Similar to uptime, your page load time affects how much traffic your website gets. In fact, there's a study by Google that revealed that 53% of mobile site visitors, that is people who are using their mobile phone, they leave if it takes more than 3 seconds to load a page. I believe you have done that before. I believe you've done that before. Maybe you are on Facebook and there's an advert that leads to a website. You decide to click on it, and 5 seconds, 10 seconds, some due to the network in Nigeria, and that page is not loading. You just press the back button and continue doing what you are doing on Facebook. So there you need to consider the speed of the hosting company. Another thing we need to consider is support. I quoted something here. I said one of the most frustrating things in life is lacking help when you need it most. It's very, very frustrating. You need help but you can't get it. You feel depressed. So a hosting company is supposed to be your best buddy, providing you support when you need it. So if you have trusted someone so much that you keep your website files with them, then they should be supportive. I don't know if you get that. There are some websites that you contact. Think of some websites. I'm not talking of hosting companies now. Think of so many websites that you have dealt with online, and you send message to them 2 days, 3 days, you don't get to reply. Especially when it's government, all these government websites. You know how frustrating it looks. Now think of you, a designer. You are doing something. The only time you should do that, okay, let me do this thing, and you need support. You get stuck somewhere, you need support, and there's nobody to talk to. You send message, they refuse to answer. It takes like 24, 48 hours before they get back to you. I believe it's annoying. So this is another thing you need to take a look at as a web designer before you choose hosting company. I think that is it. Then, which hosting service should I choose as a beginner? I believe that is what you will now be thinking about. That with all these things you've said, Mr. BJ, which one? How do I know which service to choose? That will be our next point of focus in the next lesson. I'll be showing you the best hosting service. There are international hosting, there are Nigerian hosting service. But as a beginner, you might not have enough money to venture into international hosting. So I'll be focusing majorly on Nigerian hosting service that are still very, very good, that you can use, that you will not get frustrated, that are always supportive, that meet these 3 criteria. These 3 major criteria, they have it, and they will be able to help you to get started. Then as time goes on, then when you get projects that are paid, when someone paid you very good money to build their website, then you can now talk of getting international hosting. So we'll be talking about that in the next lesson. That will be all for now. See you in the next lesson.